Welcome back, everyone. That's something I haven't done in a long time, which is obviously a mud spotlight, as you can see. And this is a very British Civil War, 1938, I believe, is the mod's title. And it's very interesting, and also, strangely enough, self-contained and not, like, ridiculous. Well, it is ridiculous, it's just not as ridiculous as it could be. So as you can see, the map is only the British Isles on the 24th of December of 1937, one day before Christmas and a few days before 1938, which, you know, obviously the mod title. And as you can see, Britain is completely destroyed, and this is obviously a glorious alternate history scenario. Basically, Edward VIII fucks up Britain and a British Civil War erupts. Obviously, it's meant to be ridiculous, and what I kind of like about the mod is that it kind of knows that it's ridiculous. So here we go. We can get the events right at the beginning. We'll just go for the sort of history events first before taking a look at the mod itself and mostly the factions. Because the mod itself is very simple. You just fight with Hearts of Iron 4, just slightly modified Hearts of Iron 4 systems. The only basic difference is that support weapons are like a type of equipment, and in armor there is a bit of a difference. There's mobile anti-tank on mobile AA, gun carrier, infantry tank, cruiser tank, and light tank, because this is supposed to represent how it's, like, you know, British. And so the British fought in terms of infantry tanks, which are basically heavy tanks that sometimes weren't heavy, but they're slow and they're meant to support the infantry. That's why they're called infantry tanks. Cruiser tanks, which basically go fast, and light tanks, which are light tanks. And there's obviously the armored cars. Everything else is mostly the same. There's also another type of land doctrine, which is guerrilla warfare, which is obviously supposed to represent, like, this is a civil war, and so people fight with whatever they have. And there's the the meme of the mod, which is the trawler ship type. Everything else does exist. It's just that. Wait, is the music too loud? Yes, it is. It definitely is. The trawler hull, which is basically like, hey, what if you took a fishing ship and put a gun on it, which is obviously meant to be like, this is very British. Aircraft, air doctrines, naval doctrines, industry is all the same. So anyway, basically, a crisis has befallen the British Isles, and the country stands at the brink of bloody ruin. I cannot do British accents, by the way, so I will fail pretty hard. In the final weeks since 1936, it all began, when Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin, citing widespread opposition from Parliament, the public, and the Church, informed King Edward VIII that neither he nor his cabinet could condone the King's marriage to American socialite and divorcee Wallis Simpson. So it's obviously like, you know, blah, 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 blah. Edward VIII becomes really dumb. The King turns to his personal friend Oswald Mosley, which is a really good idea, invited him to the palace and exercised his sovereign authority to appoint Mosley as the new, Mosley, I think Mosley, as his new prime minister. Very good idea. Blimey, mate, what happened next? A very British Civil War. The appointment of Mosley, already notorious for his extreme views and currently not a member of Parliament, caused widespread outrage, of course. Stage walkout of MPs and peers alike. Now, peers like the, essentially, I think, the people in the British Senate, which is the House of Lords. I'm not sure, might not be, but whatever. MPs are just members of Parliament. So Parliament in Westminster reduced to little more than a rump assembly of monarchists and Mosleyites, while the absentee MPs and peers set up a parliament in exile in York. Now, this is relatively common. So, like, there have been a few English civil wars or British civil wars in the past, and, you know, the most famous one, which is the, I believe, called just the British Civil War, or the English Civil War, by some called the English Revolution. This is basically the same setup, like, except with the whole prime minister part. But like the king displeases the parliament walks out, leaves a rump, and basically the rump parliament begins to do a bunch of stuff that everyone else dislikes. Except here the king is in London, while in the English Civil War the king basically got imprisoned because he was a bit of an idiot. Anyway, Mosley's appointment proved equally unpopular with the population at large, sparking protests across the country. Clashes between right-wing and socialist organizations escalated into widespread violence over Christmas and the New Year, and many police forces struggled to keep the peace. So there's a bunch of stuff. The king authorized the raising of auxiliary constabularies from largely of pro-Mosley thugs. The auxiliaries began a very heavy-handed approach. Okay. Despite this, it was announced that his coronation in May would go ahead as planned. Troubling times indeed. So, on the day of the coronation, crowds lined the king's route from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. Actually, Westminster is the capital of the provisional government over here, and the royalists over here in Worcester. Yes, this thing is pronounced apparently Worcester. Don't act like English spelling is big brain. Also, I like how the map basically represents how like fucking sprawling some cities are, like London. And then there's like Canterbury, or these other towns essentially, which are just like little tiny dots. See, like we think of these as names and they're all important or whatever, but like London was fucking huge, and it still is. And Birmingham is fucking big. Jesus. Manchester, not small. Liverpool, also pretty big. However, as the royal procession entered Parliament Square, shots rang out, narrowly missing the king's car, which immediately sped off along Whitehall. Almost immediately, the auxiliaries began opening fire into the assembled crowd, believing the would-be assassin to be among them. In response, the guards began firing on the auxiliaries. I'm guessing the guards are, the actual guards. With the ensuing exchange lasting for 15 minutes before senior officers managed to restrain their men. Visibly shaken as he took refuge in 10 Downing Street, Edward called on Mosley to immediately oppose martial law upon the capital. The king then fled London that night to take up residence with Simpson at the Worcestershire country estate, whatever, where they soon quietly married. The following weeks saw widespread accusations and recriminations of the attempt on the king's life, culminating in the disbanding of the Guards Regiment. The soldiers, once loyal servants of the crown, were sent home, deeply resentful of having their honor so besmirched. And this basically creates things like the Orchist Front, I think. Good lord, and what? As the spring turned into summer, the unrest continued to grow. The imposition of martial law further increased the resolve of the king's opponents. Across the empire, meanwhile, the crisis had far-reaching consequences, blah, blah, blah. Closer to home, Irish Taoiseach Eamon... I do not know. What is the actual name of Irish that's not in English? I don't know. I don't know Irish speak. Taoiseach Eamon de Valera sent troops into Northern Ireland, and so, yeah. Ultimately, to reclaim Ulster for the Republic. Apparently, Londonderry is still called Londonderry. But there is also Derry. So, yeah. There's actually a little tiny piece that's still British, but yeah, mostly it's all glorious Irish. Ireland is united. Only Canada remained unscathed. Could it get any worse? Summer soon gave way to autumn, but the tension at home and abroad showed no signs of abating. The leaders of the Anglican Church, driven by the Archbishop Lang's opposition to the king's marriage, declared Edward unfit to serve as the head of the Church of England, nor indeed as king. So that's the Anglican League over here. Attracting thousands of members. Inspired by this example, the Scottish Kirk followed suit and convened a council of state, so that's basically the Scottish Republic. Declaring that Scotland would no longer recognize the rule of Edward or the London government, the council established a Scottish Republic and closed the border with England. Closed the border with England, of course. In Wales, a similar wave of nationalist fervor bubbled to the surface. That's Cymru. where an independence movement was quickly established in the ancient capital of Machnilith. Yes, Cthulhu. I agree. I don't know. Where were we? Meanwhile, the industrial areas of South Wales, reflecting a pattern seen across the whole of Great Britain, saw the rapid growth of workers' militias, nucleating around local trade unions. In York, the Parliament in exile unanimously voted to appoint the King's brother, Prince Albert, as Lord Protector, of course, the People's Prince, and invited him to return from Canada to restore order. The United Kingdom was rapidly becoming anything but. So that's the Yorkist front, and they are basically there to restore sort of the pro-monarchy Parliament. Kind of in league with the Anglican League, although I don't know exactly how the Anglican League is going to stand with some of these factions. And then there is the government, which is the provisional government, and the royalists under the legitimists faction, basically saying that, yes, King Edward is the true heir of whatever. And then there's nationalist uprisings, there's Cymru and Scotland. And there's all these communes sprouting about across the whole of the British Isles. So there's the South Wales Commune under Welsh Labour. And then there's 5 other communes, apparently. So 6 communes in total. And they're the faction of the People's Armies. We'll take a look at all those once these story events are done. And as you can see, the Worker Communist Front, something, something, something. I do not have that big of a picture, so yeah. Could this be the end? As winter began to grow on, sporadic violence continued across the country, and various bands and militias began to crystallize into organized factions. Britain became an increasingly volatile powder keg until one morning in November, a tiny spark in Cornwall quickly turned into a conflagration which spread across the whole country. A Cornish nationalist group calling itself the Colonel Liberation Army, the KLA, fucking lovely, had began making raids against royalist forces and bases in Cornwall, and crossed the border into Devon, which is this thing which often is lumped into Cornwall but actually isn't. Entering into direct conflict with the Devonshire Regiment of the Regular Army. When the KLA retreated back across the Tamar, which I'm guessing is this river, what are these names? They actually sound like things out of fantasy novels. The Devonshires pursued and found themselves under fire from the Duke of Cornwall's regiment, who were there already deployed along the river and believed the Devonshires to be an invading force. The 2 regiments entered into a pitched battle, and the Devonshires eventually withdrew back across the border. However, the die was cast. As word spread, army regiments across the country realized they could no longer rely on direction from high command and would have to choose their own sides. So that's the Colonels. Surely this means war. Now, town and country alike have been riven by open warfare, but no side has been able to make any serious territorial gains. With the worst of the winter weather fast approaching, a Christmas truce has been called. Although uneasy, it has been honored by all combatants. Much of the population is still hoping for an amicable solution, or at least if there must be war, that the spirit of fair play will win out in the end. What say you? The spirit of fair play. Honor the truce or whatever. So that's basically the beginning of the game. You're at the Christmas truce of 1937, and then the actual British Civil War is going to start. Now, the mod is actually not finished like many mods released, unfortunately. It is not yet complete. So the factions that are right now provided with a focus tree and thus do shit are the Scottish factions mostly. The Jacobites, the Scottish Republic, the Red Clydeside, which is basically the Glasgow commune, and I think Colonel, yeah, Colonel, and I don't think anyone else. Like, definitely the Yorkish Front has the generic, South Wales commune, and all these other communes have the generic focus tree. Cymru just has the normal focus tree. The Irish Republic has the normal thing, and the Anglicans have the normal thing. Provisional government and royalists are also el genericos. So this is quite unfortunate, but it's to be expected. This mod has actually been in development for a long ass time. But for like I think a long time they had a bunch of trouble and so weren't really able to develop anything. But the factions that are there are pretty fun. None of these focus trees are massive, but to be honest, this mod is really just meant to be a quick experience as far as I know. Oh, and there's also the Manx state, of course, which is Fash, under Rofalinton Ormen, who I believe was the leader of this, like, sort of fascist feminist organization that wasn't as fascist as it could have been. The British fascisti. They used the Italian plural, not fascist, fascisti. That was like this kind of fascist Boy Scout and Girl Scout kind of thing. I don't know. I don't. Britain is weird in the 30s. Yeah, basically, the factions that are around to be, you know, playable right now are the Jacobites, the Scottish Republic, Red Clydeside, and Kerno. So, first off, we should probably take a look at these. I don't know what the Jacobites are supposed to like be in this particular scenario, but like historically, these guys are basically the people that want to restore the British House of Stuart, which basically is the house that takes over after the Wars of the Roses, or the War of the Roses, which was really the first, like, actual, you know, English Civil War in the sort of modern sense, although it was a dynastic struggle. Eventually, it leads to the restoration of the House of Stuart, or to the installment of the House of Stuart, which, you know, most famously their, House of Stuart is actually successive to the Tudors. I got those two mixed up. And they initially were the rulers of Scotland. I got the two mixed up. And then once the Tudors sort of died out with, I believe, Elizabeth I, they eventually became the rulers of both the Kingdom of Scotland and the Kingdom of England, and sort of united the two things. But at that time, shit became kind of bad because there was the Reformation, and, you know, Henry VIII, Tudor, had established the Anglican Church, and there were also non-Anglican but generally Protestant denominations that were starting to basically take over England. And so when the Catholic Stuarts, because Scotland remained Catholic, when the Catholic Stuarts became the kings of essentially England and Scotland, a whole bunch of weird shit started to happen, with religion being used as a weapon for sort of political control, and eventually a whole bunch of shit culminated into sort of the first English Civil War, which is the one where Cromwell was in. Basically, when the Stuart king got his head chopped off, I believe James I, and even after the Restoration, which followed the end of the British Republic, the British Commonwealth, or English Commonwealth, which was a British Republic, basically the Stuarts got restored for one more time, then they fucked up again, and basically William of Orange, which was this Dutch sort of nobleman slash political figure, became king of, you know, England, and then the Act of Union happened, creating the Kingdom of Great Britain. At this point, the Stuarts were out, but every once in a while, there would be these Jacobites, which I believe are named after one of these restoration attempts. They had a Jacob that they supported and wanted to take over. Basically, these legitimist Jacobites wanting to recreate, you know, the old Catholic Kingdom of England and Scotland. And that's what these are. They're most strong, of course, in Scotland, but especially in the Highlands. And in fact, as you can see, we can take a look at their unit names. They're all like the Highlanders. They have the Mountaineers, the Cameronian Scottish Rifle, the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, the King's Guard, the Seaforth Highlanders, or what the fuck ever. The unit names are pretty funny in this mod. The unit lists are pretty well done, and everyone starts with the national spirit, a very British Civil War, which reduces the division speed. But actually, like, this is pretty necessary because the provinces themselves They may look big, but they're actually, like, not that big. This is, you know, like a county or whatever. I don't know exactly what a county is in British terms, but like these units move pretty fast, even like the small ones, like, you know, these militias over here. These Highland militia, they can move around these provinces, zipping around. This is on free speed, you know, and they're moving about the provinces in like 2 days or whatever. So this is apparently pretty needed. Because people move fast, but they move slow because, you know, let everyone travel at their own pace. Let's all slow down and give this whole walking thing a shot, or whatever. I don't English. Then everyone has their own national spirits according to, you know, according to what they are, essentially. Like the royalists have the cavalry bonus, the cavalry elan. The provisional government has the constabularies. Damage to garrison minus 25%. Oh, right, they're supposed to like be repressive. The Anglican League has jam in Jerusalem. They see an army marches on its stomach, and the army of the Lord is no different to army of the Lord. No Anglican regiment enters the field without its local branch of the Women's Institute on hand to provide an endless supply of tea and sandwiches. The Women's Institute. Get back to the field kitchen. The Colonels are really strong on their home territory. No man an island. With the conflict on their very doorstep, more and more men come forward to fight for our cause, or whatever. And like all the communes have their own, like sort of national spirit, which is kind of cool because, like, for example, the Midlands commune has Strike Up the Band. Essentially, these guys just really, really love, you know, workers' choirs and musical bands, and they probably are too fond of, you know, labor songs or whatever. The Humberside commune has Fishermen's Friends, so they're a bunch of fishermen. They've also got bands. The Durham commune is the miners' militia. The rank and file of the Durham's People's Armies have spent years down the pit, following their father's hobnailed footsteps. And Newcastle is the Geordies ruled the waves. Tyneside has a long history of building ships, as well as Red Clydeside has the collectivized shipyards. Of course. Anyway, so yeah, everyone has their own little national spirits. The Scottish have Scottish Renaissance, Unionist officers, and the Yorkists have the People's Prince, which gives them recruitable population. The Jacobites themselves also have no man an island, but also they have the Highland Laddie, which is good for hills. Wait. What happened here? I don't know. I don't know. The Cymru have the Llandudno code talkers. The Welsh language, once on the brink of existence, of extinction, has enjoyed a renaissance in this conflict. So indecipherable it is to English ears that it has proven a highly effective means of encryption. Yeah, it's like the Navajo code talkers. And I mean, when your town names are Makinlith, Aberystwyth, Cardigan, apparently, Bangor, Holyhead, apparently that's English, and Wrexham, which, wasn't this like an old Welsh kingdom or something? I heard something about Wrexham once. Yeah, I can understand how it is indecipherable. There was that Welsh town of like fucking Merthyr Tydwyl, with like 12 consonants in a row and no vowels, except for Y's, which are half vowels. I don't know. Oh, Jesus. What's going on? Anyway, so basically these are the Jacobites. They want to restore the Stuarts or whatever. Their leader is a guy called Compton Mackenzie. I have no idea who he is. And basically their tree is inviting Ruprecht, the king of Bavaria and the only traceable Stuart heir. The king of Bavaria. Ridiculous. Hold on. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done these, so I didn't remember the command. Let's do the autocomplete. Ruprecht, King Robert the Sixth and First, great war hero. So basically, yeah, here we go. The 6th of Scotland, inland Ireland, in a dingy airfield in the Isle of Rona, whatever. So yeah, it's all kind of bootleg, and it's kind of nice. So there's two paths: either the royal treachery. In order to prevent an unjust dictatorship, he must be usurped in favor of his wife, Queen Antonia, who then becomes Queen Annis I. For the autocratic party, I believe. Yeah, it's like the, you know, basically absolute monarchist or whatever. Or strengthen Ruprecht. Now, Ruprecht is basically plea to the Vatican, rally all good Catholics to our cause, empower the Catholics. He's all about the, you know, the standard Jacobite stuff, the Catholics, the Highlanders, and all that. For king and country, every Scots duty. So that's basically that, and seek Italian aid, of course. Italian advisors, Italian scientists. Oh, wow, interesting. Or with the royal treachery, there is basically less Catholicism, weirdness, reconcile the English. But you can do a treaty with the Roundheads, apparently are the English, and with the Yorkists, essentially, and say the Jacobites propose a pact, but then you can break it. Remember the 5th of November. Of course, blow up the parliament. They tried to blow our king up, for heaven's sake. And it was not the Roundheads or parliamentarians under Cromwell that overthrew our king, cut off his head, and caused a civil war. Now is the time for action to reclaim our throne. So basically, in both cases, you end up trying to restore the dominion over all of England or all of Britain. However, you do become a constitutional monarchy with the Annis path. Just to show you Annis, I think we can do. Yeah, that's Annis the First. Long live the Queen, or whatever. And then everyone has like the very simple army and navy tree. In here, you can also get war goals on our Scotland against Red Clydeside and the Scottish Republic, which are the other two contenders for Scotland. Now, let's tag over to, I believe, this is the tag for the Scottish Republic. Yes. Oh, no. Not peaceful methods. I do not know why this is here, but it's only for Scotland. And yeah, Scotland has a bigger industrial tree because Scottish industry, and because these people do not know what a factory is. So yeah, and that's the same for Red Clydeside. They have a pretty cool industrial tree that buffs them up. And then there's the Scottish Armed Forces. 8 units of militiamen solely raised from clans, or sorry, solely from clans will be raised, along with the famous Atholl Highlanders. Then there's also currently work in progress, rekindled the Old Alliance, the Irish Friendship, the Scandinavian Legions, the German aid, and the Soviet aid. The government in Moscow is quite willing to support us with equipment and troops. They can do with all the experience they can get after Stalin's brutal purges. I do not know Scottish, so sorry. Yes, I know English with a Scottish accent is not Scottish, but whatever, I don't care. They have two paths. Either they can go communist, CPGB, which is the Communist Party of Great Britain. We should take a look at the ideologies too, probably. And either unify with Clydeside, the Red Clydeside, the Stirling Accords. Red Clydeside annexes Scottish Republic and the country changes to Red Clydeside. I do not know what Clydeside is. Or split with Clydeside and basically, you know, split the party and kill them and then annex the Yorkist front. Or say the right is victorious and say Ramsay's loyalists, the Tory loyalist. So basically you unite with Mosley, I believe. Yeah, the loyal North, the royalists annex the Scottish Republic, of course. Or you can stamp out opposition. smash the Jacobites and either rekindle the British Union of Fascists and join with Mosley, not with Edward, but with Mosley himself. Or say Scottish fascism. Mosley represents just another kind of English influence. There is no point to make friends with the BUF and we must go our own way. So Scottish fascism. Create the Protestant fascist front, because these factions are fun. Or there is peaceful methods, which is just, you know, keep the Republic. And you can either keep the Republic, get a constitutional monarchy, invite Albert, and that, I believe, the plan fails. Scottish Republic unlocks the focus, maintain the Republic. Oh, you can switch back to the Republic, cool. End the rebellion. Apparently right now it is currently work in progress, so that path is not there to be done. And of course you can do the Scottish Republic and achieve freedom. And its people reinvigorated the fighting spirit of Alba, which is like the ancient name of Scotland or some shit. Alba Gubraf, or however they say. Or you can say back to the fold and rejoin the essentially the whatchamacallthems, the English, either supporting the Yorkists or the Royalists. So basically either Albert or Edward. And the other Scottish faction is the Red Clydeside, which is pretty based. I played them just to sort of get a feel for the mod, and oh boy, they're pretty fun. They're pretty fun, and they have the fucking GDR, of course. And they're the only ones of the, like, why is he not in the People's Armies? He's supposed to be in the People's Armies. How the hell? Some weird shit has happened. Basically, he's supposed to be part of the People's Armies, but he's the only one in, like, different communes and the People's Armies that are not Labour Party, whose ideology is socialist. They are communist under the Communist Party of Great Britain. Now, the ideologies are, there's fascist, there's the Scottish Democratic Fascist Party, love it. The autocrats, so basically fascists, autocrats, conservatives, which are the, you know, the Churchill people. Liberals, you cannot see it, but I'm just, you know, doing the pointing down, thumbs down kind of sign. No liberals in my England. And then there is the Labour Socialists. There is the Radical Socialists, which are basically the anarcho-syndicalists. And here they're the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World. Did the IWW even ever exist in Britain? I have no idea, but their tree is pretty based. And there's obviously the Communist Party of Great Britain. And then there's the civic nationalist ideology, which is supposed to represent, like, sort of liberal, but we are not in favor of the British people ideology. It's basically the ideology of Kerno, Cymru, and Scottish Republic. Irish Republic, at the beginning, I think is conservative under Fianna Fáil. For some reason here, they're liberal. I have no idea what the fuck is happening there. And Clydeside has a pretty cool tree, pretty simple. You can get some ridiculous buffs, and then you have to choose essentially which political alignment you take. Either a Labour commune and, you know, sort of align with everyone else more closely, and create the New Jerusalem and all these ridiculous British Labour Party weird things, because the Labour Party wasn't normal. It was not okay. Well, to be fair, today it's not okay either. There's the Communist Commune, which is the, you know, CPGB, and they're in favor of, you know, Stalin. He's pretty cool. Or the Radical Commune. The Radical faction has won the day and now governs Red Clyde's side. Ethel MacDonald will lead the revolution in the ancient tradition of English radicalism and anarchism embodied by diggers, levelers, and chartists. This is fucking based as fuck, by the way. The diggers, levelers, and chartists are pretty cool subjects. And you get aid from the IWW. So it's, I don't know, they're called the IWW, but they're actually, they should probably be called like just utopianists, radicals. I don't know. Radical Protestantism. Basically, they're a bunch of these radical Protestant sort of populist religious movements that in Europe culminated in things like the Peasants' War in Germany and fair few other sort of popular uprisings that basically use religion as an ideology for social reform, saying like, oh yeah, God created everyone equal, and so why the fuck, you know, do we have the clergy? Why do we have the nobility? Why do we have like the rich merchants? No, that's not cool. And that's basically, you know, these, sometimes they were literally proto-communist in that they were in favor of, you know, sharing the property between the community members in a sort of, again, agrarian commune kind of thing. Sometimes they were just simply very radically democratic, which I believe are the diggers, while the levelers are more on the, you know, I might be getting these two mixed up, but these are both factions from like the English Civil War in 1600. And again, I don't exactly remember which one was the more radical of the two, but I'm pretty sure the diggers were a little less radical, while the levelers were just basically proto-communist kind of shit. There was also another one called Quakers, which was basically the OG of these factions in England, and the Quakers actually end up, they were not very radical in terms of like the whole property stuff, but they were very radical in terms of like religious pacifism, anti, you know, discrimination kind of stuff. And they end up moving to America and forming sort of the core of a lot of the radically democratic ideas of the United States. And yeah, that's basically them equal before, everyone is equal before God. Emulate the diggers and levelers. The form of anarchism created by the diggers and levelers in the lashed English Civil War will bring anarcho-syndicalism in Scotland to its roots, emulating the spirit of Gerard Winstanley, I have no idea who he is, in the fight against capitalism. So yeah, this part is cool. Then you get the battle for Scotland, and you kill the Scottish Republic, and you either split off from, you split the party from the other fake socialists, which, you know, they're labor, so I don't know. Oh, and there's also the Free City of Liverpool that we did not see, but apparently they exist under Sidney Jones. I'm sure someone understands what's going on here, but I'm not. This is not the usual. Anyway. Or you can... I just smashed my headphones. Or you can stay with the Midlands and basically stay in the people's armies. Or again, you know, it is clear the English are misguided in their attempts, and Scotland must be the leader of socialism in Britain, of course. And you spread the revolution to Ireland, which is actually fucking difficult because Ireland is big by the standards of the factions in this mod. Ireland is pretty fucking strong. And then bring the Manx to heel, which, you know, you invade this fucking thing. This cancer upon humanity, and then strike south against the Yorkists. Yeah, this is a pretty common theme. No one really likes the Yorkists, except the Yorkists. And Kurnow, I haven't actually looked at them extensively, but apparently they have a pretty big amount of military bonuses. The Armoured Tram Project. The clever soldiers in our military will work on converting the few trams we have in the area into armored metal monstrosities. Yeah, see, this is why I like this mod. It's got some pretty hilarious things. Like, you know, it's all about these weird fucking Easter eggs. Cornish Special Forces. Why? I don't know. Nationalize the shipyards. Royal Cornish Marines. Wait, Royal Cornish Marines? Is it a kingdom? No? I don't know. Mining legacy. Apparently. A Penskoll for the nation. Renault investments. Opel investment. Oh, invite the German. Oh, demonetization windmills. Invite the French. Arm the militia. Arsenal of Freedom. Convert Bodmin jail. Oh, Jesus. Restructure the government. The Game of Thrones. Oh, there's an Iron Throne. Preparations will begin throughout the whole of Cornwall with a royal delegation from Austria and Hesse invited to the capital for an election of a king. The royal gathering. The Fat King. All right, this is the Fat King thing, right? This is pretty fucking cool. Anyway. Child soldiers. The Little Colonel Legion, of course. Radio Colonel. Defying Westminster. Replace Colonel stands alone with Colonel is not England. Sorting the mess. Either empower the bishop or the king's country. Warning, going down this path might have unforeseen consequences. Okay. Apparently you can have a theocracy or something. I don't know. Feed them cake. And then bash the fash. Obviously, one colonel, eternal. Every state is a core of colonel. Colonel will be known as the Kingdom of Albion, obviously. Lovely. Fucking lovely. Remove the communists. Love it. Fucking love it. Fish and chips with Franco. A most holy intervention. The Bishop of Truro has cooed the nation. Dinner table diplomacy. The Truro Tea Party. Springtime strudel with Hitler. Oh, Jesus. Look at this. Brunch with Benito. And fish and chips with Franco. I mean, of course. So that's the Colonel. Cornwall or Kerno. Which is apparently pretty funny. And yeah, I think we've mostly looked at everyone. Yeah, like the Yorkists have a bunch of scattered places everywhere. I'm not sure, is there anything else to really see? All the communes we've seen. George Muff. Hall. Socialist. Durham. Mansion. Well, there's of course a Labour waifu, because it would not be a thing without a Labour waifu. Anything else? I don't think so, honestly. Anglican League is, you know, the Appointment Commission. But yeah, basically, gotta follow this mod, because when the South factions things are, you know, developed and have their own focus tree, it's probably gonna be a little bit more fun. Like, as it is right now, it's basically about the Scottish sort of derping and fighting each other. I don't know, it's probably, it's probably pretty fun to play as the Kern, and also probably quite difficult. Like, the warfare in the mod is kind of weird because militias are very prominent and everyone has like this guerrilla warfare land doctrine that most people probably go down. Let's see, actually, like, for example, the royalists. Let's check out the royalists. What land doctrine? Holy shit, they have a lot of divisions. Oh no, they have the mobile warfare. Interesting. Apparently these guys have mobile warfare. The Albion Front. Oh my god. Tag BUF. Let's check out the BUF. The BUF have also mobile warfare. Oh wow, interesting. What about the Yorkists? The Yorkists have superior firepower. Okay, so they're, you know, apparently different people have different doctrines, but like basically all of the Scottish factions have the guerrilla thing, and Kerno probably has the guerrilla thing as well. They don't have anything. Oh no, they do have the regular warfare. So basically, the wars tend to turn out pretty slow, but there's some pretty funny things that happen sometimes, and well, the terrain is sometimes quite annoying because there's a lot of flatlands. There's a lot of fucking flatlands. So from my experience, the wars are very back and forth. You get pushed back a lot, and then you push back, and then, you know, yeah. So it's kind of fun. It's self-contained. It's cool. Try it. And yeah, so thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.